Okay, we are live.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. And just give me 1 minute here. We're going to go to first item on our agenda. Barb, just wanted to confirm.
Yep, we're ready. I'm sorry, confirming what?
Oh, yeah, that we're ready.
Yep, ready.
We have no minutes yet, Barb, is that correct?
Yes, the ones are there from 8/11. They've been in there for a while.
Okay. So we'd like to move to the approval of the minute meetings and would like to look at a second, please.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
All those, any nays? Hear none, motion carries. And we are going to just go around with a brief check-in and maybe just maybe the end of summer. Some folks have already started their fall semester. Just checking in to see, one word that is grounding you for the beginning of this fall semester, ending of summer. And for me is patience. And Mike, I'll pass it to you.
Good evening. Let's see here. My name is Mike Jones, pronouns he, him, his. And I would say peace. And I'll pass it to Mari.
Hey, Mari Hansen. She, her, hers pronouns. My one word is organization. I pass it to Mia.
Hi, I'm Mia. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'll probably do patience as well. Megan?
Hi, I'm Megan. I use she, her, her pronouns, and my word is probably progress. Lavinia?
Hi, I'm Lavinia. I use she, her pronouns. My word would be positivity. Miss Hotz.
Jessica Hotz, she, her, hers pronouns. I would say boundaries. Gordon, your total.
Hey, Gordon, he, him. It's just one word to describe our summer.
How are you arriving today and the summer, beginning of fall?
Oh, okay. I would say stressed. Joanna, did you go?
Oh no, I haven't yet. Thank you. My name is Joanna. I go by she, her pronouns. And one word would be decisions. Has Dr. Hicks gone yet?
Hi, I'm Dr. Hicks. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I would say intentionality. And I will go to Dana.
My name is Dana. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And my word is productivity. Is there anybody left? Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ramirez. My pronouns are she, her, and my word is hopeful. And I believe that's it, right? That I can see on the screen?
I think so. Let's move into item 4. We have asked Dana from the RCC and from this committee to share with us or get us framed for a conversation around sexual assault. We shared with you all the last meeting that we have done an extensive work around covering school shootings and response interventions. This topic was very much a topic of the sort of the charge of this committee last year when we started having conversation about this committee. And it felt important to make sure that we bring this conversation to the surface. So without further ado, Dana, I wanted to pass it to you for the presentation. And I know there's some slides as well. And then if Barb can get those, she'll facilitate those. Go ahead, Dana.
I can share my screen, so that should, Barb, you don't need to worry about that. I just checked to see if I could.
Thank you.
Just to give a short framework before I get started, I want to let you know that RCC has been in the schools for years, working with students and working with staff. In 2019, we started doing intense work over at East High School due to a couple of situations. And then we all know what happened last year, and the students really taking this topic to the administration, taking this topic to the press, bringing this topic to the forefront of the conversations. You know, the student-led protests and the student-led activities, and then education that we worked with the East students in particular over the last year was really an amazing step for students advocating for themselves and advocating for what it is that they wanted to see in the schools. So I'm going to bring up this. So actually, before we get started, one of the things I always like to start with is a content warning. So we are going to be talking about situations and issues that could cause a person to be triggered. And I know that that word is out in the popular culture, but being triggered is an actual physiological response to trauma and the remembrance of trauma in the body, in the mind. So what you may see is a physical manifestation of that trauma. And that is what we call being triggered. So some of the things that you might feel as we go through this conversation are things like fear and panic. You may have some sadness, an increased heart rate, being unable to focus. You may have flashbacks. Your stomach might not feel okay. The thing that's most important is that you are taking care of yourself during these moments. If you start to feel any of those things, one, it's okay to turn off your camera and not engage. Two, it's also okay to leave. You do not need to stay for the presentation. It is online. Feel free to look at it that way. And then even if you don't have something that you feel today, maybe tonight or the next day you are feeling a certain kind of way and you want to process those feelings, we have 2 24-hour helplines that are available for people to contact. So if tonight at 2 o'clock this morning you can't sleep, you're having a flashback, please feel free to contact our helplines. We have an English language line and we have a Spanish language line. So who do we serve over at RCC? We serve all genders. We serve youth, campus, and adults. We are at all middle schools and high schools throughout Dane County, in addition to college campuses, and then again, persons who are not in school. We have Spanish language services for our advocacy program. And then in our CCS program, we do have Hmong language services. So to give an overview of the amount of programs that we have. So on the left, we have our survivor support and advocacy. I talked about our 24-hour helpline. We also have individual and youth advocacy. We have case management services. We have support groups. We have both LGBTQ support groups, femme-identified and youth empowerment groups. We offer medical and legal advocacy so that survivors are never by themselves when they are interacting with systems. We have advocacy for Spanish speakers. We also offer licensed clinical therapy, and you do not need to have insurance to be able to access that therapy, and we do not require payment. These are free services. And then we also have specialized crisis intervention and support through the CCS program through the county. Now, on our education and outreach side, we have our Game Changers Youth Advisory Board, and we are working with gender equity clubs throughout the county. I know that last year we spent a lot of time at East with their gender equity club and the sexual violence focus group. We do monthly events that have advocates and emotional support people at that event. So we did healing circles a lot in these last couple of years. And at our educational presentations, we do have advocates at those presentations. In addition, we have the Chimera self-defense class. So what is sexual violence? Sexual violence is any form of sexual contact that happens without a person's consent. And we use sexual violence as an umbrella term because sexual violence can cover many things. So that includes things like cyber harassment, stalking, sexual harassment, sexual exploitation, stealthing, indecent exposure, trafficking. So when we say sexual violence, it does encompass a wide variety of actions and behaviors, but the key words are without a person's consent. So sexual assault is any unwanted or non-consensual sexual contact. And what do we mean by sexual contact? We mean any touching of the body, especially in the genital, breast, or buttock areas. That is sexual contact. So anything that is unwanted or non-consensual, that includes touching of the body in your genital, breast, or buttock area is considered sexual assault. Sexual harassment is any unwelcome verbal or nonverbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. So things like one of the examples that we use a lot, especially in schools, is what is typically looked at as gym behavior, gym locker room behavior. So things like snapping towels against someone's buttocks. That is sexual harassment if that is not a contact that has been pre-approved and given consent for in advance. That is considered sexual harassment. Same with verbal harassment. We see that a lot in the hallways in the schools. We have kids that talk to us continually about being harassed as they walk in between classes. We also have had these comments from teachers saying that they also have had unwelcome sexualized comments to them while they are doing passing in between classes and then sometimes in classes. So statistically, we all know survivors. The statistics are before the age of 18, 1 in 6 male identified, 1 in 4 female identified, and 47% of trans persons over their lifetime experience some sort of sexual violence. So when we talk about what that umbrella term is, 1 in 6 and 1 in 4, while they are in our schools, have experienced some form of sexual violence. So you will hear of us talk a lot about what are advocates. And I am actually utilizing the legal term for a victim advocate because a victim advocate is actually protected in our laws. You as a survivor have the right to a victim advocate being present for any interaction with medical, legal, or law enforcement contact, you have the right to a victim advocate. And a victim advocate is an individual who is an employee or volunteer for an organization, the purpose of which is to provide counseling, assistance, or support services free of charge to the victim. What are our goals? Our big goal is to explain the system processes and ensure that the victim is treated with trauma-informed care. We also offer resources. A couple of years ago, there was a constitutional amendment that was passed called Marsy's Law that codified victims' rights into the Wisconsin Constitution. So one of our big roles is making sure that your rights as a victim are being respected. And then, most importantly, that your wishes are being heard and followed. You do have options and you do have choices. And so we want to make sure that that those choices are being heard and that is being respected and followed moving forward. So what does support look like in our schools? So you can meet with an RCC advocate at the school. You can call through the helpline, or you can call through student services. We work with a lot of the social workers that are in every school here in the district. And if you want to talk to an RCC advocate, they can help facilitate that for you. They can schedule it for you, or they can be with you while you call the helpline, or they can just give you the number for the helpline and step out of the room so that you can have that private conversation. What happens is that you learn about the options available for reporting. We talk about coping skills, and we learn tools to better communicate with staff or family. Now, one of the things that is important to know is, unlike what happens in the schools, our advocates are actually not mandated reporters. So students have the opportunity to come to us and talk to us about a situation and find out what their options are before any systems are triggered moving forward. So it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, so what happens if I decide to report? What does this look like? This is what happened to me. Is this sexual violence? Because a lot of the times, a good portion of what it is that we hear from folks, especially young ones, is they don't know that what happened to them was sexual violence. And if you don't even understand what is happening to you when you report, you may not understand what it is that you're reporting and then the consequences therein. So we talk about what those are. And then we talk about how to talk about this, not just with your school, but with your family, with friends. So if they do decide to report, we can be with them during the reporting to their parents, with law enforcement, school staff, Title IX investigations. We are called for every forensic nurse exam at the hospital. So if you are sexually assaulted and decide to have your body checked out and report, because understand that hospitals are mandated reporters, we are with you through that process and help explain everything all the way through. We are there with our survivors through every court hearing, even the court hearings that they don't want to go to or that they don't have to go to. If you want us there, we are there. And any other item that's related to the incident to help you understand your rights and your options. So we not just meet with you to go through all of these things and resources and options and respecting of rights, but most importantly, we're there to just listen and hold space for whatever it is that the student needs to talk about. Important to note that we also do this work with family and loved ones. So it doesn't just have to be you are a survivor. It can be your parents don't know what to do or don't know what to say. We talk about that with parents. We support parents through these processes. So we've had situations where we have a youth that has an advocate, and then the parent has a separate advocate, and both of that information is confidential. Anything that you speak about with us is confidential. And let me wrap back to mandated reporting. So there are occupations that require people to report incidents that are harmful to persons under the age of 18. And one of those things is sexual violence. So if you are talking to your school counselor, your teacher, and you disclose that you are a victim of sexual violence, and that perpetrator, you know who your perpetrator is, and you would like to talk through that person has to report that incident. And depending on who that person is who it is that they report to. And there's a whole tree of what that looks like for MMSD. But please know, law enforcement is generally notified, as is administration. So a mandated reporter is someone that has to, by law, report certain items for the protection of persons who are under the age of 18. So it's not like they're being mean or they're trying to force you to do anything. That is something that is required by law. And that's an important thing. But also it is important that you have somebody to talk to that may not necessarily have to take that next step. So it gives you a little bit of information before that next step happens. Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to stop my share for a second because something happened with my form. Let me grab something else. Hang on one second here.
Why are you doing that, Dina? And just let folks know, both they're watching us and on the committee, that those slides are being have been updated into the Google. I'm sorry, not the Google, the board docs. So you can also accessing them there.
Hello. Not much, just went and took it with Maya.
Maya, oh.
So when we are in schools, especially when we are doing, when we are first coming into schools, we do needs assessments. So we take a look at what is happening in the schools. So are we seeing disparate dress code enforcement? Are we hearing commentary from teachers and students about what is happening in the hallways? How do we connect with the teachers and what is it they are saying? So for example, do we see a minimization of violence against women, girls, and persons on the LGBTQ spectrum? We had an EHS teacher say, I know I should say something when I see stuff happening. I don't know what to say. So we really do walk into the school and look at it holistically instead of just here is some basic information. Information needs to happen for culture change. So based on feedback from students, staff, administration, in addition to known incidents of sexual violence, we look at what it is that needs to happen for that culture change. In addition, we do the crisis intervention, and that's a lot of what my advocates do. They come in with crisis intervention, also healing circles, also safe spaces when there is an incident that affects the school on a larger level. We also do staff and student education. East High School was a really great model for that last year, in that we were able to work with the students and work with the teachers to say, what is it that is missing in gaps of information? What do the students want teachers to hear about their experience? And we gave a couple of presentations based on that feedback. So it is truly student-driven peer education, staff education engagement, and then also engagement of families. So in addition to the work that we did with students, we also have done many parent groups and family groups. We saw that a lot in 2019 with an incident that happened with East High School. So not only did we meet with students and staff, but we would come to parent-teacher meetings. We would go to parent meetings that they were having on their own to help process what was happening and make sure that they knew what their rights were and that they felt they had a safe place to talk through and engage with what was happening. So we come to the schools. We can meet at the school at any point in time. We also can meet outside of the school. So we have kids that will meet us in student services once a week. We have kids that come to our office. We also meet at libraries, coffee shops, whatever it is that that person wants to connect with us at. So it does not have to be in one specific place. In addition, we do wraparound services. So it is not necessarily just about that crisis at that time. We know that sometimes the most pressing issue isn't actually the sexual assault. It might be the family is about to lose their home. And so instead, we work with the kid on what's happening with them. And then we work with the parents on making sure that they are not unhoused. We do work around food insecurity. We do work around whatever it is that family needs or that survivor needs to be stable. So staff education, we do executive coaching and education. We can do monthly professional development. We would like to start an annual conference for students, staff, and educators throughout the county to say, here are these topics that we want to talk about. Here are the things that we are all struggling with. The one thing that I know is that MMSD is not alone in this struggle. This is a struggle that is happening everywhere. And when we are working with students outside of MMSD, we're hearing the same stories. So it is truly something that we want to engage not just MMSD in, but the county as a whole. Student education, we are already in our classrooms. We are in health classes every year, talking about consent, talking about healthy relationships. We already do student club support and then events participation. So you saw our staff at the walkouts. We were speaking, we were supporting however it is that those students asked us to support. We are at other events across the city and the county. And that is my presentation, my friends. Does anyone have any questions? Rebecca's had a hand.
Yeah,
Gordon's-
actually,
Sorry,
I
Rebecca.
do
Gordon's
have-
going to facilitate the conversation. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Gordon.
First off, thank you, Ananda. But first, Dana, I just want to say thank you for the presentation. You know, always greatly appreciate having RCC in our community. So I just would like if we all just go around saying, any questions or reflections on the presentation. And Rebecca, I'm sorry, Dr. Morales, I believe you were the first one.
So my question, Dana, thank you for the presentation. Who invites Rape Crisis Center into the different environments, different school environments? So the parent environment, I'm pretty aware of, the ongoing education that you do in like the health classes and things like that. But generally, who is your access point to the schools?
Principals, assistant principals, student services, students, parents. We have many access points. So I have social workers that call us every year and they're like, all right, we're back in session. We have a couple of kids that we know are struggling. Would you mind coming and meeting with them if they're okay with that? And then we do that. I have parents that call me that say, this is what's going on in our school and our kids. Can you come and talk to our parent group about what it is that we are seeing? So we have that helpline, and that helpline gets a lot of work. And then, like I said, once we have an established relationship, then those social workers and the student support or the assistant principals, they know, to give a call. So like Maggie Zawicki was the East person that I first had to connect with. And then Maggie went over to Oregon High School. So when things bubbled up over at Oregon High School, Maggie was right there and knew my phone number. And so gave me a call and said, hey, can you come over to what it is that we're doing over in Oregon?
Thank you.
Will there be anyone else who would like to provide some commentary? Megan? And then Mr. Jones.
Yeah, really quick, most of the students that I've talked to don't know that the Rape Crisis Center has like a place in their school or has a counselor or a worker there. I didn't know that before this meeting. And then the fact that they aren't a mandated reporter and teachers are, or most staff are, I feel like that is information that needs to get out there because I've had quite a few people have something happen and, like you said, need to know their options, not sure if they want to report it or go all the way with it, but they can't really go to a teacher due to mandated reporting. And to be fair, I've had some teachers like in their syllabus say like I am a mandated reporter, this is what this means, and like explicitly say it, but it's only been 2 teachers. And then as to health class, most students that take health are sophomore students, at least at West. So I'm not sure freshman students are getting that information.
You are absolutely correct. So just to dispel one notion, we don't have someone that is stationed at the school. We can come to the school and meet with you at the school. We would love to have somebody stationed at the schools because we know that there is a need for it. And Megan, what happened last year, last school year, is we started doing education for the whole school about what mandated reporting was. And that was piloted at East High School. I would love for all of you to get that information. We also did bystander intervention for teachers so that teachers who felt disempowered knew what to do and where to go. So I agree. I think that those are very important things that need to move forward in our schools. because that's information that you all should know. I also know that our student services throughout all of the schools do absolutely know who we are and are some of our best referrers. And we have spent a lot of time making those connections so that we can help the students, and especially if they are looped in through student services. Those group are really phenomenal groups of people.
Thank you.
Michael, I know you're on the queue, but just real quick, Megan, I appreciate so much your question, and made me think about how are you all in this committee as students are navigating this. So I would love to get a sense of, if you can raise your hand, how many of you have got the information that Dana is sharing or can relate to what Megan have shared? Yeah, Lavinia. Oh, I see some like this, Mia. I'm wondering if you all can speak to what's the extent that you have got this information, because it feels really important in context of this committee and recommendations for young students.
I can speak to it for a little bit. So I personally had no idea that the RCC was like working with schools and stuff like that. So I feel like that should be maybe put out to students more, like as a resource, because they're there to be used, and I feel like that should be used more by students because they're there to help you. So yeah.
Yeah, I was not aware that RCC was working with high schools either. I did know that they did do work with students, but I assumed it was outside of school and like other organizations that you guys did the work with. But yeah, I feel like students in all grades in high school should be aware of this. And be having this conversation so they are aware of things, know what's happening, and can get the help they want or need. But yeah, I do actually have a couple of questions. Are you guys only working with high schools, and how many high schools have you worked with so far?
So we work in middle schools and high schools. So we have worked with almost every high school in Dane County. There's a couple of rural schools that we have not, but pretty much mostly all of them. Middle schools at MMSD, at least 75% of we have been in. Middle schools outside of, so the larger suburbs, we are in all of those middle schools. But again, some of the more rural and some of the private schools, we are not in, not because we don't want to be, but there has to be access and availability.
Yeah, thank you. And then another quick question. How are students supposed to know that RCC services are available at most high schools and that they can reach out to you guys if they need someone to talk to or want help or need information? How are students supposed to know that this exists and stuff?
That's a really good question, my friend. I would love for there to be a lot more information that is given out to the schools. So the schools that know us, they talk about us. And then there are schools that have had some publicly traumatic experiences that we have been brought in on. And so those kids are really, really aware of who we are and what we do. But one of the things I know is that sexual violence isn't spoken about, not just in schools, but everywhere. And so part of our job and part of the reason why you see my face here today and as a part of this group is to let people know we are going to continue to talk about this. We aren't going to let this go. There are resources. We want people to know that they are out there, and we want people to utilize the services that are available to them for free.
Thank you.
The questions, Lavinia? Joanna, we'll go back to you for the earlier question around, how much of this content you knew, and any other question you may have.
Oh yes, I just want to talk about like that I am a senior in high school and I had like no idea that any of this was available at high school. I know a lot of other seniors that weren't, like that don't know this is available. So I really hope that like this year we can work on like making sure that all high school students know that's available, just because like I've been in high school for 4 years and didn't know. But yeah, that's all I want to say, that I want to agree with what the past students were saying. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And then Gordon, you kind of did this too, I think. Do you mind speaking?
I only know of like RCC and its involvement with EASE, mostly through like gender equity, and when RCC was part of the sexual violence focus group. And honestly, it came to my realization that EASE probably has such a great awareness of RCC because, I mean, look how often they had to work with us, right? But other schools don't have that same experience, and that is a problem. So
Yeah, the other schools don't have the experience of the exposure. That doesn't mean it's
well,
not.
yes, the exposure. Oh, yeah, the exposure of RCC and what
Yeah.
it can do for them. Mhm.
Absolutely.
So should we move to Mr. Jones? Yeah.
Yeah, I just Dana, thank you for your presentation, and obviously all the work the RCC has been doing with all of our schools. You and your associates aren't new to working with schools and school districts, and seeing how this is kind of a space where we're trying to think about how we're doing things differently, based on your experiences of working with kind of schools and the bureaucracy that comes with it. Are there things that this group, or as we're kind of discussing, making some significant transformations in terms of safety that you would like to personally see based off your experience of working with and in not only MMSD schools, but in other schools? And also, so I guess I have two questions: that, and are there things that the RCC provides, or, in terms of trainings, in terms of having discussions around trauma-informed practices that could have these discussions even before, not waiting until a moment of trauma occurs, to have discussions around that culture and climate piece that you spoke about, in terms of how we have these discussions? Just as someone who's worked in middle schools, as I have to own, like, sometimes I have perpetuated some of these things inadvertently, but still has impacted students alike. Are there things that you think would, if you had your druthers, you would like to see change within the system as it is?
100% there are things I'd like to see change. I'd like there to be more awareness, not just of services, but awareness of the issue. We have curriculum that goes from K through 12. We have been working really hard to develop curriculum, evidence-based curriculum with UW-Madison, our partners there. So we have curriculum that can be at every grade level, where we start talking about what is consent, what are healthy relationships, and not just sexual violence, but IPV. I don't want to leave out the fact that there is domestic violence and intimate partner violence that happens in our schools. So there needs to be better education and awareness, because again, as we know, I, as a parent, 15 years ago would have been wholly unprepared to talk to my son about these things, right? I had to do a lot of learning over my professional life to get to the point where I can very easily talk about these issues and talk through what consent is, because all of us have made missteps, because all of us were ignorant until we learned. And it is truly about that primary prevention piece. It is about making sure that people understand what is sexual violence, what is intimate partner violence, how does that manifest, what to do next, how to talk about it, how to erase the shame and fear that society places on survivors of these particular issues, and normalize a conversation at various ages on, this is what is developmentally appropriate to talk about. And there is developmentally appropriate material at every age. So it would be great if the school had comprehensive education around these subjects. And there are people and places that do this already. RCC is one, DAYS is one. We do professional development all over. So it's not even that we have to create something to make something happen here. This is stuff that we do. This is stuff that we have done literally for 50 years. We are the second oldest rape crisis center in the nation. We have led this path for decades. And there is great opportunity. In addition, that mandated reporter piece and the education around that mandated reporter piece is so big. It's so big. Even the teachers, when we were going through, and I see Jessica, shaking her head there, like they even have a hard time sometimes encapsulating what all of that means and what happens next and where to go next. And doing a 15 to 20 minute conversation at the beginning of the year, that doesn't cut it. This has to be a routine part of all the conversations. Here's what's next. Here's how we integrate this into this part of the school. Here's how we integrate this information to our trainings on what happens in the athletic department. So we have the ability to do that. It just has to be done.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm here really reflecting on all your words. Thank you. Mari?
Yeah, thank you, Dana. This is really great. I just wanted to kind of confirm, I think there's a tendency in the case of sexual harassment, particularly verbal cases, that, we're sort of trained to think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But if a student is experiencing verbal sexual harassment at school and they're not comfortable at school, the Rape Crisis Center is a resource they could reach out to, correct? Even though it's just quote unquote, just verbal harassment. It's something they need help with. Okay.
Yes. It's why we use the umbrella term, because we don't want anything to rise above the other thing, because everything has an impact. And a comment can have an impact that a smack on the behind has, depending on each person. So we don't rank who gets what based on what. It is, you have experienced sexual violence, we're here to talk to you about it, whatever that is, however that looks like for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ruben, don't mean to put you on a spot, but putting you on a spot, what do you see the role of the city with some of this conversation?
I don't quite know. But we recognize that sexual harassment and the like happen all over the place. I think part of our intimate safety initiative, which Dana's part of, is to focus on that on top of gun violence, focusing on sexual violence. And so what we're trying to do is do trainings with downtown staff people, and then create ambassadors for downtown, so that some of the things that lead to sexual violence can be avoided. So, people not having the ability to get a ride home and being dependent on people that they're with, that they meet at the bars, people being followed and not realizing it or not feeling comfortable enough to address it. So kind of just having a lot of bystanders is our way that we're tackling it right now. And we'll see how that has an impact in its first year. And so, that's kind of what comes to mind. And high schoolers and middle schoolers use downtown, as well. So I think outside of the schools is where I can see our role.
So I'm going to speak a little bit to the Downtown Safety Initiative. I do not believe that initiative goes far enough. Essentially, what it is that we are doing for that initiative is giving training to bars and restaurants about bystander intervention. There needs to be widespread training. There also needs to be conversations about the fact that most of the people who experience sexual violence know their perpetrator. For students, it's about 90%. For non-students, it's about 80 to 85%. So there are things that we can do in places like the Downtown Initiative that are going to be great. So they were looking at better lighting. That is lovely. We will be able to be in bars and talk to them about what bystander intervention is, how to take a look when somebody is inebriated and all of a sudden the person that they were hanging out with is like, well, I'm going to take them home. Can we get them a cab that is separate? But the whole way that our city and our systems deal with sexual violence and deal with intimate partner violence need to be examined on a macro level as a whole, because it's not good enough. And there are steps, and Ruben is one of the people that I know cares about those steps, and I appreciate that. But there is a lot of work that has to be done in our city, in our county, on these issues in particular.
Thank you so much, Dana. Thanks, Ruben. And Mike, I'm actually going to pass it to you. The same question. What do you see the role of MTI as relates to the conversation we're having?
I appreciate that. I think our, having conversations with Jessica, knowing this, knowing this is a longstanding, has been an issue for a very long time, and we're talking about culture, not just incidents. And seeing ourselves in terms of, okay, what sort of professional development are we pushing for? Are we actually returning to it? Are we seeing it as a one-off, as opposed to making it really a part of our culture and climate, like social emotional learning, PD work, part of our trauma-informed practices work that we're trying to do, and also have those discussions about how we need to move differently, both as staff working with students, but as staff working with each other and making sure we're supporting each other, because just from the union side, hearing from teachers or educators, because it's not just teachers, but, student services, EAs, who are sometimes feeling like they've been harmed in a certain way? How do we advocate for doing better, and also having, just ways of using our restorative practices to repair that harm and recognize it. But I think first and foremost is to not just see it as, well, it's just an issue at this one school or an issue at this one level or in this one piece, but this is part of, a larger cultural problem, whether we want to say that's patriarchal or, rape culture, which I think is a term that's been used very often. I think we see ourselves as like, we need to step up in terms of doing that work, because I will say this also as someone who was a dean, unfortunately, at West, sometimes there were students who after the fact said they were not comfortable coming to me as a behavior responder. And I need to own that and figure out, how do I get better at that so I can be more welcoming, or at least help them know this is where you can go. You can, if you're not comfortable talking to me, maybe you can talk to such and so, and maybe we can do this, just to make sure that also this is not on one person or one particular group of people. It's on all of us to change this culture. But at least that's what's going through my head in terms of the educator side, in terms of taking ownership, but then also how do we dive into getting better at serving the needs of our colleagues and especially our students, our scholars, who are carrying this and then aren't telling us because maybe because the relationship isn't there all the time. So Jessica, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I was going to agree with everything you said. And I know Mike and I have had conversations about this over the past couple of years. And I think from a staff point of view, knowing how to support our students and refer them to RCC and knowing the services that they can provide is fantastic. And we have gotten a ton more information on that. I think I would like to see our admin be forced to be trained better in this, because I can speak for myself. I've been harassed a great deal at school, and I have had multiple principals in very high places totally gaslight. And when some of the things have happened at East, I've had them deny that staff need any support, and had principals out to get me for saying that. So it is something that we need, principals to be much more sensitive to in regards to staff as well, because if our staff are not okay, they can't support our students. And I think that's really critical. And I think some of maybe what, our staff need to know about is maybe more how RCC can act as that victim advocate, as far as, how that works, so people can sort of understand how to get that kind of support if that's what they feel they need. I mean, sure, it's great to have these Title IX coordinators, but some of those are admin. I don't know how that's situated in all schools. I personally would feel very comfortable going to mine, but I'm not sure that's the case for everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Haas. We have already heard some threads of recommendations based on this conversation. I would love to hear, to just do a quick round to see if there are other thoughts or specifics around, as part of the language of recommendation from this group. But Dana, I actually wanted to come back to you to, if you can talk a little bit about what are some of our greatest opportunities. I know you spoke to a comprehensive examination of our culture. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that macro conversation, and then any other opportunities that you see in a district in regards to the conversations we're having.
So we put together a plan for the district that does just that, where we talk about what it is that we see on a macro level and what it is that we want to implement for the district. And that includes comprehensive education for students, staff, admin, teachers. It includes professional development. It includes having an advocate that is assigned to schools in specific. I always feel like we're behind the ball at the schools, and we are coming in at moments of great crisis. And as soon as that crisis is over, then we aren't as worried about it, and it kind of gets put to the back burner instead of saying this is an opportunity to continue that work. And that is what I would like to see moving forward, is to not engage us in a crisis alone. Yes, we were there for crises, but also a comprehensive plan on how to change the culture and how to develop different thoughts and attitudes and ways of doing things and education around those things. Because right now it is spotty. It's not that there aren't people that don't care. There are on every level. It is truly about coalescing all of that information into one space and being like, here's what this needs to look like. Here is a specified plan on how that moves forward.
Yeah, I'll pass it to Gordon, but I really appreciate, Dana, you sharing your service to this committee and then also your work. And we do have, I think, just a society culture of response to crisis and just go to the next thing in crisis. And so I appreciate you speaking to what does it look like to do preventive work comprehensively, and also to speak to the culture. I have several times pointed to the young people, Megan, I see your hand, pointed to young people in this committee to say, well, if their colleagues don't know, that if their friends go to them with those questions, right? And those are our student leaders. Those are students that are very visible in their schools. They go to them and they don't know, right? What are we saying about how we're disseminating the resources or connecting students to resources? Megan, let's go to you, and then Dr. Hicks. Gordon has actually a question for you, so we'll go to Gordon next, and then Dr. Hicks. Go ahead, Megan.
Okay, so within mandated reporting, would a student go to a teacher or a counselor or a mandated reporter and say, assuming they had information about the crisis center, could they say, hey, I want to talk to somebody that's not a mandated reporter about something that happened? Would that trigger them to report that? Or
It doesn't. We've actually taught the teachers what to say. One of the things that we teach them is something called protective interrupting, where we can, where they say the words, hey, before you move forward, I just want you to know I'm a mandated reporter. This is what this means and looks like. So before you go forward, please know you can talk to me, and that's an okay thing. I am here for you to talk to. But also, here is someone that you can talk to get information from that isn't a mandated reporter. And then if you do choose to move forward, then I can be here to help you with that also.
Yeah, thank you, Megan, for the question. Yeah, go ahead, Megan.
I was just going to say thank you.
No, thank you, because I know I got trained on that. I'm a mandated reporter, and I got trained to do the interrupting. What is often missing, well, one, not everyone is getting that language, right? It's not until you are in that situation that you know that you have to practice. And then two, I think, Dana, to say, and there are other options for you, right? So it's not to say, well, if you say something, we might escalate this conversation. And Megan, I just wanted to kind of clarify, and Dana, you tell me if I'm using appropriate language. Sometimes someone just wants us to, I don't even know what just happened to me, and I just wanted to talk through. I don't want anybody to do anything. I don't want anybody to call the police. I don't know if I'm ready to talk to police, right? And it's so much information in a time of such vulnerability that having to make those decisions before you're ready to be in that space. It's not even something that we as human beings and members of the society are actually educated on. Like, we don't even know that we have that choice, right? All we know is that if you snitch on somebody, that person's gonna get in trouble, you're gonna get in trouble, you're gonna get exposed, they might not believe you. I mean, there's so many stories around that I think the conversation around culture is critical to what we're discussing here. So thank you, Megan, for raising that conversation. And Gordon, I'll pass it to you.
Yes, I would just for Dr. Hicks. I just want to know, what do you think the district can do to strengthen its partnership with RCC?
So I'm glad you asked that question, Gordon, and because part of my comment was actually going to be directed at Dana around, the word I used in the first place when we started was intentionality. I think that oftentimes just in our society, our district as well, things are often reactive instead of proactive. And education and learning needs to be ongoing and continuous and not a one and done. And so again, it also takes individuals to be intentional around things and purposeful for change to happen. And so I really want to connect with Dana so that we can begin to dialogue around moving the work across the entire district in a more educational or proactive way, so that because if we don't, we'll be having this conversation 10 years from now, and it needs to move forward at all levels, from pre-K through 12. And I think that, again, like Dana said, you don't know what you don't know until you learn stuff. And a lot of times adults are often afraid to share needed information. We think they're not ready. It may cause trauma, a lot of things, but to do nothing is, to me, also a travesty. So we do have to look at the developmentally appropriate levels and making sure that it is being included often, not just, we're going to do this once. I mean, with a lot of things in our district, we need to keep coming back to it in crises when with lack of knowledge, when we could have been educating along the way, and then adults, scholars, and families will know what to do. So I don't know if I answered your direct question, Gordon, but I'm sitting back here taking notes and saying, well, I need to do this, making sure that it's leveraged in spaces to make sure that all scholars in our district have the information that they need.
Okay, so I just want to know, has the district been approached with any type of partnership that would put RCC more in direct contact with schools before? Because you said you would work with Dana to see how can we continue this going forward, right? But I'm wondering if such a conversation has already taken place, but just hasn't escalated to the point where it has actually been implemented.
So that's a good question too. I don't know, because it hasn't escalated to me. And there might have been conversations in spaces. And again, I'm newer in this space. So wherever it has been, I'm going to do some investigation to make sure that it's broadened into the spaces that it needs to be.
Thank you. And does she have a question of your own? Okay.
Oh, I could take my hand down, because now I stated it in my response.
Thank you, Dr. Hicks. Ms. Hotz.
Well, this actually is almost a question for you, Gordon, although I know Dana was involved with the things at East too. There were those flyers that got created that went all over the place. And I know Gordon, you helped put those together. Did those not go to the rest of the district? I'm just wondering why high schools maybe wouldn't have seen those, and why the hell didn't we do that? Like, why would we develop a plan that says, hey, Rape Crisis Center, this is what we do, and then not distribute them? And then follow up, most of them got taken down over the summer, so we need more. So I don't know if the district thing, or I haven't talked to our office staff yet, but we could use some more wherever those came from. So the hallways and cleanup, construction.
Gordon, do you want me to respond to this part?
Yeah, first I just want to say hope they I'm just impressed about what you said. Sorry, but I just hope it like gets put up. And you're right, there shouldn't be.
We have them in a room still. I mean, there's still one in my room.
Right.
It's in the hallways, which I think are important too, and like the bathroom where we had them.
I hope that they just throw it away.
Yeah, unfortunately, the hallways end up like that in the summer. Sometimes it's nobody's individual fault, but whatever. Yeah.
Okay, Dana, what were we going to say?
So the principal has access to those. They can get they're the ones that printed them out the first time after we completed the design. So that can be printed at any point in time. She has it in the drive. If she does not have it, Patrice, I know, does, Ms. Hutchins. And my understanding was that East was going to be a pilot with the idea that it was going to proliferate throughout the schools. That has not moved forward.
And and I'm just saying that I'm going to work to ensure that we bring that back. And I would just say I was in a couple spaces. So
We missed the last thing you said, Dr. Hicks.
Yeah, Angie, you're cutting out a little bit once in a while.
Oh, I said I was in East yesterday and I did see them up in a couple spaces on the walls or on the bulletin boards.
But yeah, from my understanding, before that whole focus group was dissolved, it was understood that this pilot program that East was, so to speak, was, distribute out the posters, establish sort of connection with RCC, but then was supposed to branch off to the other comprehensive high schools. And then from there on, it would go to other levels in the district. But I would have thought that maybe throughout this entire summer, there would have been more active plans to actually move past the pilot program that we say it is to like other schools. So yes, not just, I can probably connect later with Dr. Hicks and Dana to see like what can we do to, escalate it to other schools. And then to also make sure that those twice a year presentations also get done at East too, and to make sure that those flyers are still even there at East and gets distributed out. And thank you, Ms. House, for raising those questions. Dr. Mareras?
What I'm really hearing from everybody is that there are, Dana, what I heard you say is that we have a long history of working with RCC in the school district. However, it might be somewhat piecemeal, because I can recall for years going back and working with your staff about doing consenting relationships and things like that, probably for a growth and development class. So what I'm hearing overall is that what we really need is that comprehensive, coordinated response. So the flyer alone might be nice, but it really is not a comprehensive, coordinated response. How does the teacher know how to really direct the child to the flyer or whatever it may be? And I also know that there's a wellness advisory council that it works on the human growth and development aspect that might be done in our health or our PHYED physical education classes. So again, there's another committee or group that if we really want this coordinated and comprehensive, it really needs to be to change the culture, right? Because it's at every level. It's not just at our school, but at every level. Not just at the student level, at the parent level, and at the staff level. So connecting with all of those folks that do the human growth and development, and so that it is truly comprehensive and truly coordinated.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. So we're wrapping up our time. What's also in your agenda is the action grid, and what's not in the grid is information from the conversations that we had at the last meeting around mental health. There were some action steps around information and communication and accountability that I think that will be important to bring to this draft. And then definitely I think that we have come up with some really great examples of actions that could be incorporated. I just want to see if there's any other comments before we move to the next agenda item, and want to say thank you again, Dana, for not only just be a part of this committee and informing this work, but also all the amazing and important and critical and life-saving work that you do every day, all the time. Any further comments? Yeah, go ahead, Dana.
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for the time that you spent today talking through this issue with us. Thank you.
Yeah, so Gordon, we were gonna go. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I do have a question for Dana, but it's related to the recommendation grid. So it's a way that should I ask her during the recommendation grid? Okay.
Yeah, just now. Yeah, go ahead. We're on that now.
Oh, okay. So in our recommendation grid, Dana, I was wondering, like, do you feel that RCC has like adequate access or support from the district to establish these partnerships? Dana, you're muted.
Adequate access, or I missed that part.
Or access. I mean, I think I said adequate access. I forgot. But basically, do you all, I said support. Okay, adequate access or support to the district to establish, the partnerships at each of the high schools with the liaisons and et cetera.
No, but that's why we have asked for that specifically, what it is that we feel that we need to make that happen.
Exactly. So I'm wondering in our recommendation, if we could recommend something where the district will review its policy with partnership for RCC. How do you feel about that? Dana, your response?
How do I feel about you all putting this into the recommendations? Yes, I would love for you to put it in the recommendations. Like I said, we're ready to do the work, but MMSD is the largest school district in the county. It is one thing to have one advocate that can be that can come around to do some specified things. It's another to have a team that is very specifically focused on the schools, and a team of educators that is very specifically focused on the schools.
Okay. And in that recommendation process, I'm sure we will, have your support and like crafting it. Okay. Thank you. That's all I just wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Gordon. So the last item in the, well, not the last, but the second to last item in our agenda is a leadership transition plan. Gordon and I have done a lot of back and forth about when our time was going to sunset with this group. We were supposed to sunset somewhere when I stepped down from the board in April, and then end of the school year, Gordon graduated early summer, and then we kept on going. But Gordon is moving on to school into California soon, very, very soon. And I also going back to school for a doctoral program. And we wanted to just take a brief moment to share the deep gratitude to you all answer this call. When we were asked to put a group together to talk about and to make recommendations around safety and wellness, Gordon and I had numerous hours of talking through what we have done in the past and realizing and being intentional about doing something different. And one of the main things that we wanted to do different was that felt really important to have student leadership and student presence. So we were able to create this space that have, to me, put me in a place of a lot of learning, a lot of growth, but also feeling really humble to be serving with amazing young people and folks that I deeply respect in the community and in the district. And also having parent voice too, having teacher voice. So this all have felt extremely important. We never thought that this was going to be done in any time soon. What we wanted to do, knowing that we had a short time with this group, we wanted to make sure that this group became a community. This group became a place where, you know, folks weren't checking out, that folks were showing up, that folks were eager to show up, eager to follow up, bringing their wisdom, bringing their voice, and bringing their strengths and their gifts to inform this work. And we believe that we did that. We also know that life has changed for a lot of folks, and folks, you know, some of our members and some folks that we have recommended to be part of this group or to come to these meetings have not been able to for different reasons. And this is, I think, is a really great time to also you know, to revisit that, to make sure that, you know, and this is a question for you all too, like, you know, is there somebody else, or are you all ready for, you know, the next 6 months or the next 8 months of work? Because the work, as Dana mentioned, there's a macro large scope of work that needs to be done, and it's not a transaction, and it won't be, you know, we can't get this done. It's not one time thing, you know, it's a continuum thing. And I feel like we just have emerged a lot of really critical recommendations and content. So having said that, this is Gordon and I's last meeting with you as co-chairs, and we wanted to welcome the amazing Lavinia, who will be our student co-chair, and a dear friend and someone that I really appreciate and have my unwavering support. Our board vice president, Maya Pearson, will be our newest co-chairs. This group will be joined by the board member, Michelle Nichols, who I know has a great passion to this work and lots of additions, important additions to this committee. And she'll be the board representative in this committee, serving this committee too. Gordon, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share before I start crying here. Go ahead.
You know, I just want to say I really do appreciate you all for helping us in this work. We have actually accomplished a lot, and you know, when Anand and I were on those calls trying to think of like, you know, the whole operation of this committee, it was just like to finally see in action, to see all the progress we made. It just makes me so proud. I will be continuing to remain on a core part of the committee, you know, to support Lavinia and to make sure that this work continues to, you know, get done, so to speak. And, you know, I just hope that we continue to have you all support too. But yes.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. And I see that Board Vice President Maya is here, so I'll pass it to you, Lavinia, and you, Maya, to share, a few words to the committee.
Okay, I'll start. Hey, everyone. Yeah, I guess for me, Ananda, sad to see you go, but really excited for your new opportunities. I think, I'm really proud of you for taking that leap. Hopefully I'll take the leap one day with you. And then Gordon, as always, it was a pleasure, and I'm really excited for you to go to college and see your Instagram on being on campus as a freshman. But no, I'm really excited to continue this work, and I think we'll definitely get some good things done. And my hope is that we can definitely have recommendations by the end of the year that we can hopefully implement next year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you all. And then Lavinia, I'm going to pass it to you.
Yeah, I'd just like to start by saying thank you so much to Ananda and Gordon for kind of setting this committee up and working incredibly hard to bring it where it is today. It's sad to see you guys both go, but I know you guys have a bunch of things going on in the future. I'm so excited for you guys. And I'd like to say that I'm incredibly excited to be continuing with this committee, and I really do hope that we can all work together to create actual change. Thank you.
Yeah, as Gordon mentioned, we will still support the transition. There's still the incorporation of what we have discussed into the action grid that we can continue to build, and as Board Member Maya Pearson mentioned, so we can have some strong recommendations moving forward. Not to say that we have already raised a lot of really great concerns and push that the district needs to be doing. So I'm not saying, what I'm trying to say is that we have already done a lot of work just by our existence, by the brilliance that has come from this group, for the questions, by the sharpness of all of you all. So deep gratitude. And some of you I've been working with for a long time, and I really, and I'm not going anywhere. We're still here, and I'm excited for the future of this committee, the continuation of this committee. And there's one person that is our glue. She often has her camera off, but she works relentless and has put a lot of sweat and blood into this group. Barb Osborne, deep gratitude to you to make us keep moving. I think we shared in some of the meetings that she retired, she stayed in the committee, and she wants to make sure that she told me that she wants to make sure to see this committee be the committee that is going to inform other ways of us to work, for us to change the way we work and we do business, and wants to make sure that we have those strong recommendations pushed forward. So thank you to you, Barb.
Thank you so very much, Ananda, and everyone. Thank you. I look forward to working with everyone and finishing up the work and getting the recommendations to the board. Thank you.
And with that, we'd like to call next steps. Barb, would you like to talk about the time? I see that the time is still the same.
Yes, I think we're going to be able to stay on the same schedule with Maya and Lavinia as co-chairs. So the next meeting will be like it was already set for 9/22 at 5:15. And then we'll continue. We'll talk more about the schedule at the next meeting with Maya and Lavinia. But I'm seeing it, like you said, probably trying to wind it up by the end of this calendar year, so before December, so that the board can then begin to talk about their their budget in January.
And Barb, are we confirmed to have the restorative justice folks present?
Yes, ma'am, they are confirmed for 9/22, yes.
Great. Well, with that, I'd like to entertain a meeting, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ruben, second by Board Member Pearson. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.